you watch Skinwalker Ranch? I watch it. And every season so far, there are these things that they do that just fray me, you know, like these conclusions. First, the History Channel thing that they do, like dun dun dun, and you know, all these like little clips of everybody like staring at each other, like, oh my god, that's so fucking annoying, dude. Especially if they are trying to do legitimate science. I wouldn't stand for that shit, man. It is just terrible. Just terrible. But besides that whole thing, besides the History Channel's inability to produce anything that has, you know, that's not like... I don't even know how to describe it. Like soap opera-esque documentary style. Hey, Esri, we don't need a bark, do we, sweetie? We don't need a bark. Okay. All right. Aside from that whole mess that is, and the side scripting, you know, and I don't know, man. It rubs me the wrong way in so many different ways. I didn't know I had that many ways to rub wrong. But okay, as far as actually scientifically trying to investigate what is going on down there, if it's not a ruse, if it's not BS, and if it's not, there's some weird shit happening down there. But let's get to one of the things that just frustrates me to no end, without the glottal stop in there, to no end, is you know, when they catch something on a camera, oh, look, there's a UAP, there's a UAP, there's a UAP. And the only data they can gather is, you know, a few pixels running across a screen. So this is an idea that I had that might be helpful in clearing that sort of problem up. So what we have here is a multi-frequency electromagnetic spectrum detector across 3 angles, each 60 degrees apart from each other. And of course we would have these guys back here. So these big 3 ones would be radio wave, you know, basic dishes. So this would be a pretty large device, but at the same time, it would clarify a lot of things. You could probably get this to be a fairly small. You know, and you see, I did the, you know, we want it to have some depth of like a waveguide, so that it's very directional in its reception. And that way, well, let me explain this first. Why do we have 3 nodes here? Why do we have 3 arrays? But let's talk about what devices we have here first. Okay, so we've got the radio, right? Like, you know, everything that has a wavelength longer than you know, your microwave range. And because they always have microwaves or microwave spectrum, that 1.6 gigahertz thing, which, you know, I have a hard time with that one too, since like everything, Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, it's all in that range. 1.6 gigahertz specifically sounds more like Wi-Fi, but, you know, I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt that they are, you know, truly trying to figure out what this is. Then it has occurred to them to maybe not turn on anything, like turn off all your Bluetooth, turn off all of your Wi-Fi, right? Turn everything on the ranch that is even close to anything that they've found to be anomalous. Turn it all off. So, all right, you've got your typical radio waves, and you've got your microwave dishes here. A little smaller, a little shorter of a wavelength because, you don't really need it that deep. So next we've got the infrared. And I was thinking, side note on their infrared, the scanners that the LiDAR scanners, they find anomalous points that just kind of pop up and appear. So the question that I have been asking, I don't know why it wouldn't have occurred to them, but I hope it has, or they just haven't said anything about it, is that with LiDAR, you're projecting out laser pulses, and then you're reading it back. You're timing it to see when it comes back, so whatever it just hit, you can calculate distance from the where the pulse was generated to the reception of that pulse. But why? I don't know. It's interesting that it could be externally generated, just happens to be the same frequency that they use with the LiDAR, or I don't know. Anyway, my point is, I would go with a broader range. With your LiDAR, you're limited to just that one specific, very, very specific wavelength. So I would go with a full camera array, along, and that they do have infrared cameras, but in the way that they've been using it, I don't know. I would look more into that. I would look more into why it seems to, is there something special about that particular frequency that they're using in their LiDAR scanners? Why those anomalies don't show up on their infrared cameras? I would probably want to try to answer those questions too. But anyway, these are infrared cameras, blah, blah, blah. These three guys. And then you come back down to, and I just threw a nub in here, right? This is your visual range camera. You'd have, a bunch of like 4K cameras or whatever, 8K, whatever you want, just throw them all in there. And then you would have like a little sensor box for, since, the smaller in the wavelength you go, the smaller the sensors typically tend to be. So everything past visible, ultraviolet, right? X-rays, gamma rays. I would build in a little array just for those on each one of these. Okay. Now, why do we have 3 nodes? Well, this is where it can get a little tricky and get a little bit more information. Now, stereoscopic imaging is where you have 2 cameras that focus in on, or just at least, record your field of view, and using that slight distance between the 2 cameras gives it enough of a difference in visual, in what it perceives and records, that you can use that information to determine depth. So any one of these 2 pairs, this and this one and this one, and this one and this one, you have, instead of just one plane of perception, one plane of depth perception, which is what we have. This way you would have 3 separate planes of depth perception. You would have across these 2, across these 2, and across these 2. The reason why I think this would be important is because the more planes of depth perception that you have, and I don't think you would need more than 3. I don't think you can have 3. You can't have 2 without having 3, I guess I should say. Once you introduce, a second plane of perception, you automatically can close it between the other, do you see what I'm saying? If you just had just one camera, you add a second one, and now you have one plane of depth perception. can't go and add a second plane, this one and this one, without inherently describing a third plane of depth perception. So I think this is perfect because there are a few things you can do with this. You can polarize filters. You can use polarized filters for your, in front of your recording devices or whatever. And you can, there's a trick you can do with this setup. So if you had, let's bring it full front, all right? If you had in this camera right here, or this camera, it doesn't matter. You had your polarized filter with light going up and down, all right? So from the perspective we're looking at this, you would be at 90 degrees if we were considering like a unit circle, right? So this would be 0 degrees. You go up to 90 degrees. It's a 90-degree phase from completely being horizontal. Then our next one, we phase at 60 degrees. Okay, so now its filter is bringing in light like this. One more 60-degree phase, and you've got your third filter, and its light is polarized like this. Okay. Now, if you have polarized light at 90 degrees, and you have another one at 0 degrees, and it hits it, you cut it out, right? But if it's off, if it's within that 30-degree range, the light will twist to slip into that polarized filter, or into that filter. So you would, with all three of these active, you would get everything. You're not losing, no matter what angle your light's polarized at, it's going to go into one of these. In fact, no matter what angle your light's polarized at, it would get into at least two of them. So you're getting polarization information, right? Which would be important. You would know what plane. You would get a rough idea of how that light was polarized, given if it doesn't go into one of the, it is recorded on one of the devices. And then on top of that, you get depth perception. You get depth information. And with 3 planes of depth information, it just makes it that much easier to really zero in on what is going on there. So you can gather a lot of different types of information with a setup like this. At first I thought, why don't they just use, because they don't know if they're looking at, they literally don't know if they're looking at bugs flying across the camera or if they're really looking at a legitimate anomalous device or a vehicle or whatever. Introducing the ability to perceive depth perception while also introducing the ability to determine phase, or at least to some degree, while also introducing the ability to perceive multiple ranges of electromagnetic frequencies. You've got a pretty solid device here. It would cost a minute, but it would have to be built and paid for. But I mean, it's Brandon Fugel. Like, dude could pay for it. It's not that. This is pocket change to him. B, he probably doesn't even pay for anything on the ranch. It's all pretty much, what comes in through the Discovery Channel. He's just providing the ranch. He may, he provides a helicopter, a couple other things, but he's not an idiot. He's a smart guy. That's the reason he's a billionaire, which means he's probably got a few funding systems set up just to pay for the investigation itself, which means getting his hands on something like this would probably be trivial. You would need to hire a few engineers to figure it out, make sure there aren't any weird interference bubbles or or the oddities that happen when you align so many things. That's why I put the radio drums in the back, because obviously, the smaller the wavelength, what am I trying to say? The radio waves are going to shoot right through everything else and get right to the radio drums. So it's okay to put them at the back. Same with, the microwave or the microwave housings, microwave antenna housings. And that's why we have our visible cameras up here, higher frequencies up here, right? And then our infrared, visible and ultraviolet, X-rays, gamma rays, everything that's higher frequency at about the same, about the same, I guess, on the same plane, facing outwards, or close to. I don't know. I would probably want to bring the infrared back a little bit, bring these guys forward just a little bit more, because the cameras, well, it doesn't really matter. You know what I'm saying? It's the general idea. So, yeah, this would be kind of a triaxial depth imaging system with multiple bands of, or multiple frequency detection, multiple bands of frequency detection of the electromagnetic spectrum. And then you would probably want a series of these, right? So this is like your ultimate camera. It's telling you everything that's happening, and it's giving you way more information than anything that they're using. So just kind of wanted to sketch this up. It's a thought I've had for a minute, and it's something that's been bothering me on the show, why they haven't set up, any sort of like stereo camera setup. It's even just introducing different stereo pairs and peppering them throughout the area, having them all facing different directions and that sort of thing would give them way more information than they're getting right now with their just single, their Popeye cameras. So that's all I wanted to say. It's just a thought I've been having. I wanted to make a statement. I think they could be doing much better than what they're doing as far as this sort of stuff. And as much as a lot of what they're doing is based on what they can detect and see. And given, that a lot of it, right, the footage, all of the weird infrared stuff, their FLIR cameras and their fucking LiDAR scanners, and I mean, this would roll a bunch of stuff up into one. You wouldn't have a LiDAR-like system here. I guess you could incorporate something like that, but this is passive. This is passive detection. There's no active, shooting stuff out and then measuring what comes back. Though I suppose you could incorporate that. It's just that that would probably make this a lot trickier, given the way some of those devices work, especially LiDAR. But yeah, you can directionalize LiDAR, right? You can just, even though it's spinning all the way around, you're just saying, I just want this stuff. So I don't know. It's a thought. And I think they should do something like this, because it would help clear up a lot of questions that they have, and a lot of the terrible History Channel dramatizations that they like to infect their series with. Well, we didn't see that last number. Dun dun dun. Zoom in. Just what the fuck are you guys doing, man? You could make this interesting. You could make it, you could give a cadence and make it fascinating and keep people glued to it without making it feel like you're watching The fucking Bachelor. It's possible. I promise. History Channel. Jesus, dude. And after thinking about it for a while, I do kind of understand why Fugle went with the History Channel, because it would probably be a pretty hard sell unless you were producing it yourself, and that's a whole other thing. Maybe FX would have taken it. He was probably looking for something that's long term, that he could for sure get a deal with, and he just had to like bite the bullet and be like, fuck, dude, I know they're gonna do that stupid History Channel stuff that they do with it, but well, I'm just gonna put it in the contract that they can't script it and they can't lie. That's enough for me. Right? Okay, I'm done. Bye. Cheers to y'all. Have a good day.